Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to stick to Hong Kong and we're going to return to a brewery that has now featured on the channel many times before. Now, I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the last couple of years, quite a few different styles, but if people were to ask me about this brewery, I would say that they're probably best known for their different kinds of lagers. Those are certainly my go-tos when it comes to this brewery, but they are very solid all round. They try quite a variety of different things and they always turn out pretty solidly actually. But the beer that we're going to have a look at today is one of their core range beers. It's one that I've had many times before, albeit only on draft, never in can, so that's a point of interest when it comes to this particular review. But it's a style that I very much enjoy, one that is enjoying a little bit of a renewed popularity in recent times from what I've seen, and yeah, they've just kind of changed the cover and stuff of this beer too, so I think there's a few points of interest with this one. So needless to say, I'm very curious to try this beer again. Hopefully it's as good as I remember, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head over to Hong Kong Island. We're going to go to the southern part of Hong Kong Island, to a place called Wong, Chuk, and that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from Young Master Brewery. So this particular beer is called 1842. It comes in at 8% ABV, and this one is a West Coast Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA. So yeah, like I said, I've had this beer many times before. Mostly on draft. I don't know if I've ever had a can of this, come to think of it, but yeah, very recently they changed the artwork of this one to be this nice kind of shiny red, if you like. The older Young Master labels were a sort of like parchment scroll colour with a red sort of trim on them, and I think this one's to kind of put it in line with the new shiny version of the Pilsner, if you like, because again that had a sort of, yeah, parchmenty and red trim type label before. But yeah, like I said, an 8% West Coast Double IPA, this one that I know is really solid. I've had this many a time at second draft and at TAP and things like that, so definitely cool to do a proper sit down review of this one and think about the beer a wee bit more in depth. But this is kind of one of the classic Hong Kong craft beers these days, I guess you could say. But yeah, let's crack on then and see what this beer is going to have in store for us. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Young Master Brewery before, and we will no doubt add more to that list at some point in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Hong Kong playlist along with a number of other things. That's being added to whenever I get the opportunity, of course, which is quite regularly, and there's still quite a few core range beers from other breweries I need to go through as well. But do make sure you check out the playlist of beers from different countries too, because there are some really interesting things on the channel these days. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Young Master Brewery once again then. So, Young Master Brewery was founded back in 2013 by Rohit Dugar, who is originally from New Delhi in India. So he moved from New York to Hong Kong in 2011, and he was working for Goldman Sachs, and he stayed in the financial industry for a few years, but he decided after a while that he was bored of it, he wanted to quit, and found his own microbrewery. And he had been kind of exposed to craft beer over in America, and it was something he was just really interested in. So he was joined at the brewery by German brewer Ulrich Altbauer, who had an extensive experience of brewing in China, and he was the master brewer originally, but sadly he died in 2016. The current brew team though is Edwin and Brian, both of whom have worked for the brewery for a good number of years, and their first brewery was in Ap Lei Chau, which is a little island just off the south coast of Hong Kong Island. But this facility had a 10 hectolitre brew house, and it acted as their main production until mid-2016, and they opened up a new Brewery in Wong, Chuk with a 40 hectolitre brew house from GA in Germany, as well as a larger barrel aging area and a fodder for producing sour beers. These guys were actually the first brewery in Asia to have like a kind of Belgian style fodder, if you like, which is pretty cool. The latest figure that I've seen for this brewery is that they produce 15,000 litres per month, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's inaccurate, so I need to message them about that and ask. But they've got several tap rooms and restaurants these days. This includes the TAP, the Ale Project in Mongkok. They used to have one up in Shunwan as well, but they've got Second Draft at Victoria Park, Pub 1842 in Central. They also had Alvy's in Kennedy Town as well until recently, which did really good pizza. I was sad that that closed. And they also have a bar called The Guild down in Singapore, which has got a really nice kind of circular bar actually. But today, these guys are the largest craft brewery by volume in Hong Kong and also the most decorated brewery as well. But as of September 2024, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 280 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and they now employ about 20 different people. But yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about Young Master for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on and actually have a little look at the beer itself. So yeah, like I said to you, this is one of the kind of classic beers from Young Master. The name 1842 is taken from the year that the Qing dynasty ceded Hong Kong Island to the British. I think in the 1870s, that was when they ceded Kowloon as well, and then the New Territories rental came a little bit after that actually. But yeah, 1842 was the kind of formation of British Hong Kong, and this would have been the year that this style actually arrived in Hong Kong as well. So quite an apt name for it, I guess we could say. This one is Imperial, of course, and the whole idea behind the IPA was that they made the beer a little bit stronger, they made it a little bit more hoppy as well, so that it would survive the journey from England to India and further afield, such as Hong Kong. So yeah, like I said, an 8% double IPA. This one very much fits into the West Coast IPA category. So yeah, one of the classic Young Master beers. You can see at the top of the can there, the Young Master characters, which is nice. This symbol here, for those of you that haven't encountered this brewery before, these are known as the Young Master pants. They have got a kind of club membership thing called Blue Pants, and that gets you discounted at different bars. Plain silver top on the can there, tells you a few of the Chinese characters on the side there, which is pretty cool, you know, hoppy, bitter and robust, which is a good way to describe this beer. But yeah, really nicely presented, this one, I have to say, as you'll always get from Young Master these days. 330ml can. I think I paid about 25 Hong Kong dollars for this, which is about £2.50 sterling, €3, maybe yeah, $3.50 American, something like that. I forget the exchange rates these days. But yeah, let's get this guy out into the glass then and see how we go. The 1842, a West Coast double IPA from Young Master Brewery in Wong Chuk Hang, over on Hong Kong Island here in the Hong Kong SAR. So let's do this. That looks very, very nice. So yeah, pretty much as you would expect, in all honesty. So before the head disappears on this one, we can say that it's poured with a little bit over a half finger of a kind of soapy, I would say, kind of slightly cream coloured head there. I'll just bring that up so you can have a little look at it. You can see the kind of medium-sized bubbles on the surface there, and it gets a little bit bumpier the further up the head that you go. But you can see that this beer has poured a lovely kind of bright yellow, golden straw colour actually, so it looks really, really nice. Yeah, a little bit of natural haze to it as well, so is it maybe unfiltered? I don't know. But yeah, remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugar is caramelised, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. Any barrel aging that you do or any adjuncts that you put in as well will affect the colour of your beer too. But when it comes to IPAs, you don't often have to care about that, in all honesty. But yeah, the West Coast IPA, of course, one of the things about this style is that it tends to use all barley malt in its malt base. Sometimes they'll use a little touch of wheat or a little touch of oat, but yeah, for the most part, the malt base is all barley malt, whereas New England IPAs use use quite a little bit of wheat and quite a little bit of oat, which is what gives them the big hazy sort of creamy thing that you'll very often see with them. But yeah, this one for me looks very nice, and the West Coast IPA style, for me, it can lean two ways. It can be a little bit more oily and caramelly, such as the Sierra Nevada Torpedo, and in that case you're going to get a more rich amber sort of colour out of it, or they can be a little bit more sort of bready and biscuity, such as the Russian River Pliny the Elder. Those are the two that are just my kind of benchmarks, if you like, my point of reference. But the 1842 is a little bit more of a kind of bready, biscuity take on the style, and that's when you get this more yellow colour out of them. But not too much in the way of visible carbonation with this one. As we said, it's got a little bit of natural haze to it, but yeah, all in all, pretty much what I remember this beer looking like, and pretty much what you should expect from a West Coast IPA of any description. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that for the appearance. Let's go on and have a wee look at the aroma of this one then. I'm quite curious to do this a little bit more in depth, of course. Oh, that's pretty fresh actually. I only bought this can a couple of days ago, actually. But it is in pretty good condition, you can smell that straight away. What's the canned on date on this one? It doesn't say, it just has a best before date, which is 14th December 2025. Okay, so not sure exactly when this one was canned, if you like, but I think it was fairly new in the supermarket because I hadn't seen the red one like this before. So yeah, at least in my own supermarket, I've seen it in other places. But yeah, aroma wise, this one is very, very nice. It's giving you everything you'd expect of the style. You've got that little bit of breadiness in there, the sweetness, the big kind of punchy green component, and also the oily fruits as well. But yeah, aroma wise, this is pretty damn nice. So let's just break the aroma of this one down then and describe it for you a wee bit more in depth. One thing I will say about this beer is it's nice because it does have a little bit of an English character to it as well, and for, you know, Hong Kong would have been one of the prime destinations for the IPAs to come to, of course. So it's nice that it does have a little touch of English character rather than being fully American, if you like. But it is for the most part an American West Coast double IPA, this one, we can say that. But yeah, the backbone of the beer then with this one, it's got that lovely kind of fresh, like brown bready hedgehog bread crust character in there. Absolutely, you get that with this one. So yeah, lovely wholemeal brown bready bread crust with this one. Yeah, so you do get a little touch of woodiness out of the malt base here as well, so a little bit of woodiness coming out of this one. You've got some Jacob's cream cracker in there as well. So yeah, wee bit of Jacob's cream cracker, a little bit of woodiness to the beer too. And then on top of that, you start to get the other bready notes. The one thing about Young Master as well that we should point out is they tend to use German malts in their beers. So you can kind of smell that with some of the crispness out of this beer. So I'm pretty sure there's a bit of German malt and maybe a little bit of English malt in here as well, like from Simpsons or something like that. But yeah, you do get a nice little bit of that kind of grainy wholemeal brown bready character in the base. And then on top of that, there is absolutely some, yeah, you've absolutely got some of that really nice, I would say, like a kind of fluffier white bread, but it just has that little bit of dryness to it, and it's the wee bit of dryness and crispness that makes me think, yeah, it's German malt in here once again. So yeah, a little bit of kind of wholemeal brown bread, some white bread above that. You've got a wee bit of like toasty, biscuity character coming out of this one. So yeah, a little bit of toasty, biscuity note, in there, then straight up oily sweet caramel in there. That's the boozy side of the malty character coming out, of course. A more kind of crispy McVitie's digestive biscuit, and maybe some little hint, there's maybe a tiny little hint of like a Werther's Original butter candy butterscotch in this one for sure. But yeah, the kind of graininess that the bready side of this beer has is, yeah, the graininess that this beer has in some ways, that's kind of what gives it a wee bit more of an English character, which I think is quite nice, especially when it's got this this name and things like that, you know, the 1842. But yeah, I think that's everything we can really see about the malty side of things with this beer. The yeasty side is kind of what you'd expect. There's a nice little bit of like brown bready character in there. It has got a little bit more of a kind of crackery, white bready, farmhousey type note as well. But not too much actually. I think the malty and yeasty side of the beer is dominated by the sweeter elements that give the beer the booziness, in all honesty. But yeah, the way that all of that pieces together is really quite nice, so it gets a thumbs up from me. Yeah, it's good stuff. So on the yeah, on the malty side of things, I think that's, and the yeasty side, I think that's all we can really say for the moment. So let's go on to the hoppy side of the beer. Yeah, so when it comes to West Coast IPAs, or IPAs in general, there are three types of hoppings that you can do. You can do early addition hopping, which takes place within the first hour of the wort boil. That gives you mostly bitterness, and it gives you a deep, dank green component in terms of flavour and aroma. You've got dry hopping, which takes place after the wort boil is complete, and that, you've got late addition hopping. I should have done that one first. Late addition hopping, usually within the last half hour of your wort boil. That gives you a little bit of bitterness, but mainly flavour and aroma. And it will give you quite a bright green component within that flavour and aroma. Then you've got dry hopping, which is the one, as I said, takes place after the wort boil is complete, and that one is all about flavour and aroma, and again it's going to give you a very bright note. New England IPAs tend to rely on late addition and dry hopping, which is why they're kind of softer and more juicy, whereas West Coast IPAs use all three types of hopping, and early addition hopping, of course, gives you more of yeah, it definitely gives you more of kind of dominates, if you like, and gives you that deeper, danker, more bitter character, and that's definitely what you're getting in here. There's obviously been quite a little bit of early addition hopping with this one. So with this beer, you can definitely get that nice little touch of earthiness in there. So good little bit of an earthy character, a little touch of herbal character as well. Then you've got that nice bright floral aromaticity. So you've got a nice bright floral aromaticity in there. Good little bit of yeah, there's a good little bit of like kind of fresh grassy character coming out of this one. So yeah, really nice kind of fresh grassy zesty character in there, and then yeah, the way that that goes together is really, really nice. So yeah, bit earthy, little bit kind of herbal and woody as well, but then yeah, nice big floral aromatic notes, maybe a wee touch of a danker pine resin in there, and then yeah, that kind of zesty grassy sort of note coming out of the beer. So yeah, I think that's everything we can say about the green component. Let's round off then with a wee look at the fruity side of things. So yeah, the fruity side of the beer for me, it's yeah, the fruity side of the beer for me, it has quite a nice kind of oiliness to it, this one. I think it might be Cascade that's in this, and I think maybe a little bit of Centennial or something like that. There's something telling me that this might be like a sea hopped beer, like Columbus. I don't know about Chinook. I think Cascade, Centennial, and maybe Columbus in this one. Columbus would account for the kind of sort of spicy floral aromaticity, but it's not too aggressive either, though. That's the thing. But yeah, there's definitely some Cascade in this, because you get that little hint of grapefruit, but not too much. You've got that sort of sultana-y note as well, so like dry white green grapes, like maybe a slight plum. Yeah, maybe a slight plum, and yeah, an oily pear, of course. Yeah, slight plum, oily pear, and yeah, it's maybe a wee bit of like fresh green apple, but I'm getting a wee bit of like an oily, like lemony limey note at the front of the nose too. So yeah, I think yeah, Centennial, Cascade, and maybe a bit of Columbus or something like that in here. It could be all Cascade, right enough. That wouldn't surprise me either. But yeah, the aroma of this one is really, really nice. And like I say, it's quite interesting to sit down with a beer that you're fairly familiar with and just think about it a wee bit more and try and figure out what's going on. That's why I like doing these longer sit down reviews. But as I always say, take a little bit of time to just enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. But I think it's about time that we have a taste of this beer and see what it's all about. So yeah, this one is the 1842, a West Coast double IPA, 8% ABV from Young Master Brewery in Wong, Chuk over on Hong Kong Island here in the Hong Kong SAR. Slàinte, skål, and cheers. Oh, that's nice. I do like this one actually. I kind of regret that I didn't get 2 cans for this review, but yeah, no, I have this one. Yeah, I have it kind of fairly often at Second Draft or TAP here in Mongkok. But yeah, this one's just so good. It kind of gives you, it's just a sort of, it's one of these kind of classic sort of almost nostalgia type beers. It's like one that you would go back to when I was first getting into craft beer. I think I got a Mosquito again. I hate the fucking things. But yeah, it's one of these beers that you just think about. This is the sort of thing I would have been kind of drinking when I was getting into craft beer with like Brewdog and stuff like that. You know, the hardcore IPA and stuff like that. That was always one of my favourites, but this is really, really nice. Yeah, gets a big thumbs up from me, this. But yeah, definitely a more kind of bready and biscuity leaning West Coast IPA, this one. And I do like the fact that it has a wee bit of graininess. It does show that in the flavour, the sort of graininess I was picking up in the aroma. It does come out a bit in the flavour as well. I can't remember the last time I actually drank this beer on tap. It was a couple of months ago, I think. But yeah, I do like the fact that this one shows you a little bit of that English character as well, which is it makes the beer really interesting. But yeah, let's just break the flavour of this beer down then and describe it more in depth for you, as we always do. So, the backbone of the beer, we'll go to the middle third of your palate then. The backbone of the beer, you've got that fresh kind of sort of, I'd say it's more of a white bready bread crust actually, which is a difference from the aroma. So yeah, you've got that kind of lovely fresh white bready hedgehog bread crust in there. As you move further forward on that middle third of your palate, you get a nice you get a nice little bit of, you get a nice little bit of kind of woody, you get that nice little bit of woody character in there as well. But then above that you get some Jacob's cream cracker, which is really, really nice. Yeah, so lovely little bit of Jacob's cream cracker in there, which I think is really nice. And then yeah, Jacob's cream cracker, and I would say on top of that you get a little bit of brown bread. There's definitely a wee bit of this kind of oily and grainy brown bready character in there, which I really, really like. So yeah, lovely kind of oily, grainy, brown bready notes in there. And then on top of that you start to get the white bready character as well. So the white bready character has a little bit of kind of fluffiness to it, a wee bit of sort of graininess as well actually. But yeah, mix of kind of oily brown bready character, then the kind of white bready notes above it, which is great. And yeah, the way that all of that kind of pieces together, I think is really, really nice. So that gets a thumbs up from me. The malty character in this one is pretty good, but that sort of graininess that it has is what gives it this like slightly English character. On top of the white bread then you get that wee bit of like toasty brown sugar. There's a wee bit of this like a toasty brown sugary character, and then in the centre of your palate you've got that lovely oily circle there, which is the kind of boozy flavours to this beer. So yeah, again, that's really, really quite nice. So I love the kind of oily, boozy sort of note that this beer has. Then just around the edge of it, there's a little bit more of you've got a little bit more of kind of McVitie's digestive biscuit. You know, there's a toasty kind of bread crusty character in the base, the oily sweet caramel character in the middle. Then you've got a nice little bit of McVitie's digestive biscuit around the edge there. So yeah, the way that all of that goes together, I think, is really quite nice. So that gets a thumbs up for me. The malt base on this one is really, really well done, and it still feels quite light and drinkable in a sense as well. And you know, as I say, I kind of often associate Young Master with the lagers, so it's interesting with this one that their IPA, their Imperial IPA, still has that kind of drinkability to it as well. But yeah, let's leave it at that for the middle third of your palate then, and we'll go to the back third of the palate. As I've often said, the back third of your palate is going to give you very similar flavours to the middle third of your palate, just at different intensities. But remember, the further forward on the palate you are, you're more likely you are to get sweeter flavours, and pardon me, further back on the palate you're going to get the more dry and bitter flavours. But yeah, the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of bready build up in there. You get the kind of brown bready characters on the base, the white bready character on top of that, and then a wee bit of a more kind of bitey white bread on top of it. But then the base of that back 30 palate, you've got the nice kind of white bready bread crust in there, the kind of Jacob's cream cracker sitting on top of it. Then yeah, you've got the kind of wholemeal brown bready note sitting on top of it, which is a little bit lighter, taller and more airy. Then yeah, you've got the white bready character sitting above it, which again is a little bit lighter, taller and more airy. Both of them are a bit drier on the back third of the palate. And then just on top of that, you can feel a little bit of the toasty caramel just creeps over the top of it as well. So yeah, the way all of that goes together, I think, is really, really nice. And then above everything else on the back third of your palate, you start to get the yeasty side of things. So yeah. Yeah. So the yeasty side of things for me, at its core, there's like an oily, sweet, brown bready, bread crusty character in there. So yeah, oily, sweet, brown bready bread crust. And then around that, you do get a little bit more of a more grainy wholemeal brown bread, and then yeah, the very edge of it is like a more grainy, crackery sort of bread crusty type character there. So yeah, like an oily sweet brown bread in the middle, a bit bread crusty as well. Then yeah, the more grainy, drier brown bread around that, and then yeah, it's like a crackery bread crusty character around the very edge of that. So yeah, the way that goes together in this one, I think, is really, really nice. But definitely, you can feel on the back third of your palate, the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your tongue, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. So yeah, that's pretty good with this one. But yeah, let's go on to the hoppy side of things then. I think we said everything we need, a bit malty and yeasty character. Back corners of the palate, you've got that nice little bit of earthiness in there. And as you move further forward, it gives you a little bit of an almost slightly woody character, which is quite interesting. But then yeah, as you move further forward along the sides of the palate, there's a wee tiny bit of pine resin in there. But I think it's actually quite oily and more floral, I would say. Not too spicy. But round the front curve of the tongue, the beer is lighter and more grassy, I would say. But the green component's actually quite oily on this one, which I was a bit surprised at. I do remember this beer being a little bit more bitter on tap, actually. So yeah, that's an interesting observation about the can. But definitely, let's go to the front third of your palate then and the fruity side of things. I think we said all we need to about the green component. So yeah, the border region between front third and middle third of your palate. Again, you get that nice little bit of bready build up in there. You get the kind of brown bread in the base, the white bread on top, then a wee bit of a kind of more bitey, wee bit of a more kind of bitey white bready character there. But the base of that, the base of that front third of your palate, it's like a more there's like a sort of wholemeal brown bready bread crust in there. Then yeah, you've got a Jacob's cream crackery note above it, then the brown bread, the white bread, and then a wee bit of the toasty brown sugar again, and then you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters roll their way out of the beer. So yeah, the fruity esters that come out of this one are really nice too, but quite expected. So yeah, the fruity side of things in this one, I would say, the fruity side of things in this one, yeah, I think I've got a feeling it's Cascade in this one, in all honesty. So yeah, at the back of that front third of your palate, I think there's a wee touch of grapefruit, but not too much. Then as you move further forward from that, it's like kind of sultanas. Dry white green grapes, maybe a little bit of like plum sitting on top of it, and then as you reach the middle of that front third of your palate, it's all about like the kind of big oily pears, and then yeah, as you reach the kind of front half, as you reach the kind of front tip of that front third of your tongue, it's a little bit more, there's a wee touch of a lemony limey character to this one, so maybe a little bit of Centennial and a little bit of Cascade in this one. I was trying to think if there's an English hop that would give you these sorts of flavours, but I think it was English hops, the earthiness and stuff, and the herbally character, the green component, I think would just be a little bit different, in all honesty. So yeah, I do think Cascade and Centennial, potentially a little bit of like Columbus or something like that. It could be Comet is the other one that might fit this quite well, because Comet, the beer does show you a little bit of apricot-y character, so Comet could be a good fit with this kind of flavour profile as well. So always used to be interesting to play guess the hops, but these days there's too many of them to really be able to do it quite as well as we used to. But yeah, I think the way that this one goes together is really nice, and it's, as I say, cool to sit down and think a little bit more about a beer that you know fairly well. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that for the flavour profile. Let's just round off then with a wee quick look at the mouthfeel. So for me, this beer, I would say again, mid-bodied. Carbonation is very smooth in this one. This beer's got a lovely, really slick, slightly oily mouthfeel to it, which I do really quite like. The IBU count in this one, I think this is about 60 or 70 IBUs. I do remember this being a little bit more bitter on tap, actually. So yeah, I want to say about, maybe 60 or 70 IBUs in this beer. The malt, like we said, there's a bit of dryness underneath, smoothness in the middle, then an oily sweetness on top, and then yeah, your hoppy character in this one. The fruity side of things is really nice and oily and slightly drier into the aftertaste too. But all in all, a really, really solid beer, this one. And like I said, it's cool to sit and think about this one a wee bit, because I've had it quite a few times. So yeah, proper old school West Coast IPA, this one, and the sort of graininess that it has gives you a wee bit of that English vibe to it as well, which is interesting. But yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this one. This was the 1842 West Coast double IPA, 8% ABV from the wonderful Young Master Brewery in Wong, Chuk here in Hong Kong. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Young Master Brewery as well, and we will no doubt return to these guys again at some point in the very near future. But until then, Slàinte, Skål, cheers, check out my social media, check out Young Master's social media, and I'll see you guys in another review very, very shortly. Slàinte, Skål, and cheers.